Welcome to the YolandaT Project Conversations, a podcast that celebrates diversity and representation in children's storytelling, entertainment, and edutainment. I am the host, YolandaT.Marshall. On this podcast, I chat with authors and creators of children's books, entertainment, and edutainment. This is also a collaboration with the Ottawa Black Book Club. Welcome YolandaT.Marshall to the YolandaT Project Conversations. My name is YolandaT.Marshall. I'm the host of this podcast. And the reason I put this podcast together is because I realized we don't have enough podcasts that celebrate or discuss diversity and representation in children's storytelling. So welcome YolandaT.Marshall, the author of My Soca Birthday Party with Jollof Rice and Steel Pan, and other books. Okay, so that's the reflection there, but it's fine. So Yolanda, please go ahead, introduce yourself.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm happy to be here. I'm YolandaT.Marshall, and I'm a Guyanese-born author. And I live in Toronto, Scarborough to be specific. I have 15 books, 2 of which are adult poetry books, and 13 children's books. So I started out self-publishing initially since 2008. And I ventured into children's book when I got pregnant with my son, so around 2015 is when I started children's book because once again, we don't have a lot of podcasts celebrating authors like myself. And equally, we don't have enough books celebrating Black kids, especially who they are, their culture, and the people around them and their community, a deeper dive other than a character looking Black. So I have written many books, and I hope to continue. At first I said, I just need to do 13 books, so it's enough to fill a future mom's shelf. And here I am at those 13 children's books, and there's so many more to come. So I love it. It's my passion. My son introduced me to myself. So yeah, and I think my title says a lot in one punch for that specific book, My Soca Birthday Party with Jollof Rice and Steel Pans.
Yeah. Yes, it does. It does, because I looked at it and I went, "Ooh, jollof rice," because I write for adults, and then recently started writing for children because I had writer's block.
Yes.
So I tried, I just thought I would come into children's storytelling, writing stories. Once you write a diverse story, every publisher will be chasing you, every literary agent will be chasing you. And I did that, and no, that didn't happen. So I had to try the self-publishing route. My adult books are traditionally published. So the self-publishing route taught me a lot. It opened my eyes to a lot of things. Yeah. So before I go into your book, I was going to ask something I saw in your profile. You said Kikuyu mom. Why do you call yourself a Kikuyu mom?
My son is half Kenyan, and his dad is Kikuyu. So, you say I have a Kikuyu son. That's his tribe.
Oh, that's good. I like that you are owning. I love that you are owning it. For me, I'm from Nigeria. And I'm from the southern part of Nigeria. My ethnic group is called Esan. And I tell people that I intentionally kept my accent, because through the years I could have lost my accent. Living in England and then moving to Canada, I could have lost my accent. But I intentionally kept my accent because I did it for authenticity. And yeah, you say you live in Scarborough. When I moved to Canada, for the first 2 years I lived in Scarborough. Yeah, different parts of Scarborough.
Scarborough's so diverse. Did you find it the same, or did you find it a bit different? Like how I visited Ottawa, I've never lived in Ottawa, but compared to Scarborough, what's the?
Well, in terms of diversity, I prefer Toronto. Yeah. That's Scarborough, Toronto, because it feels like Lagos. Yes, I tell people Toronto feels like Lagos. There are Nigerian restaurants, Caribbean restaurants, everything. Yeah. So I want to go to your book, My Soca Birthday Party. What I noticed here, the first thing that caught my attention here was the journey of food.
Yes.
I had written a book about the journey of food, how food went from Africa to the Caribbean to the Americas, and how food is called, similar things are called by different names.
Yes.
And maybe through the years and through the journeys, the recipes have been tweaked.
Yes.
So what was your inspiration for writing this book?
So my inspiration number one is my son. I am raising, as you mentioned, I'm happy you did, a Kikuyu son. So we, of course, you would know, my name is not my name anymore once you give birth to it. I am Mama Wangai. I am Mama Miles, right? And with his dad, he eats the cultural dishes. I cook it too. And he's doing his Swahili thing, he's doing his English thing. So you notice the kids in there, they're from different backgrounds. So he at times relate to both the Caribbean food and food from many African nations, right? He has a very diverse palate. Yeah. And in our world, we venture into like many restaurants, right? And I love cooking Nigerian food. I make ugusi soup. I make really good puff. I make fufu, plantain fufu. We eat it every week, that or ugali with stews. So this is our reality. And understanding as well, like I am born in the Caribbean, and on my dad's side, I'm a grandfather and such a Pan-Africanist. So at a young age, I have a knowledge of where fufu is from, and pretty much throughout the Caribbean region, right? Whereas I would meet some people with Caribbean heritage and they don't really know it much. And unfortunately, the ignorance from them spread to everyone else. But for myself, I've been exposed to the history of the Caribbean. Therefore, I'm exposed to the history of Africa and the regions where my ancestors would have came from, because that's where it started, right? Yeah. And so food, we understood where I was eating fufu as a kid in Guyana, and you have a different Caribbean countries gonna name it something else and whatnot, in Barbados, there's cuckoo and all this. So I wanted to share that, and I really wanted to unify that group, because we are of each other in many ways, right? And we're connecting here in Canada. More so, if I was just in Guyana, I might not have met many Kenyans, Ugandans or Nigerians or Ghanaians at all. And Canada allows me to say, hey, my family is here. And you search for, what do you have in common? You talk, hey, you have this? Yeah, I got that too. And yeah, but we call it this and that. And this is what we do. And same as the Caribbean. A lot of times you have people coming from, you're coming from St. Kitts, and you have really no full idea of what another Caribbean island might be calling their foods, right? So you want to share it. Like in my book, I have sweet sorrel stand.
Yes, I wanted to share that too.
That one I wanted to say, like make sure I mention that sorrel is from West Africa, and there are a lot of Caribbean people that didn't know that. It's like it came on the ships as medicine.
Came on the ships, yes.
Right? And I said yes, and in West Africa, in Ghana and Nigeria, they drink it every day. And we are like, okay, we'll drink it at Christmas time. It's like, and I wanted to share the benefits of that. The history of food says a lot, right? Yes. And I feel that if we don't understand what we're eating, if we don't understand our culture, if we don't understand the history and how it's shared amongst many that looks like us, other people will bottle it and sell it back to us. And they've been doing. And it's like, if you put it in the younger kids' heads, like, hey, don't let them generalize us. And I also found that every Caribbean food, you'd be hearing, oh, it's Jamaican food. And it's like, you know what? No, we are from there's little different regions, and that food has a history. Rice and peas, wache. Like little things, like it's like there's history to this. There's you just can't generalize it. That's another thing that would happen, the same way they generalize us by just looking at us, right? Yeah. So we have to understand what we're eating, and food, the history of food tells so much. It tells us of our travels, and it allows us to open up and celebrate our differences, try new things, venture out there, you find your tribe. In order for me to know my tribe, I have to know, how do you live? What makes you happy? And one thing we all have to do, we have to sit and we have to eat. And in that moment, we feel good. Our brain feels good. Our heart feels good. Our body's being nourished. We feel nice, And then we sit down and you have the itis and it relaxes and you're in a good mood. So you imagine you have so many people at your table, the conversation is different because you're in that space like, yeah, you're good, you're full, yeah, tastes great.
What I noticed is, the interesting thing, I was just listening to you speak now. When I decided to write for children, I'm a history junkie. I love history. So I'm always, right, when I was growing up, I was always asking questions. Why is this like this? When I put together the manuscript for Food, I remember I had sent it out to publishers and it got turned down. And one literary agent said to me, the story is heavy. And I was wondering, okay, why is the story heavy? Is it because I brought in the slave trade? Because I had to talk about the slave trade because, you see, an author said, what connects all of us is blood. And even though, okay, my ancestors got to stay back in the motherland, your ancestors were taken away. But you realize that when many of them were taken away, they didn't leave empty. They left with the richness. They left with the recipes. They went with their medicine. They went with their thoughts. Because I have this friend from the Caribbean. I can't remember the country she's from, but she said to me that she's trying to find her roots. And I said, okay, before you take the DNA test, I would like to ask you a question. Do you have folklore stories? What are the kind of folklores your parents and grandparents tell you guys? She said, well, they talk about Anansi all the time. I said, Anansi? Oh, so your ancestry is in West Africa? She said, huh? I said, yes. I said, Anansi is a spider. That's Ghana. So you should be looking at Ghana. Because if you had said to me, Gizo, I would have said, be looking at Nigeria. Because we have similar stories. It's like if you look at Roots and how Alex Haley started to trace his roots, it started from a story that had been passed down through the years and through the generations. And when I read your book, The Sweet Sorrel, it was the same thing. I went, oh, sorrel, we call it Zobo. Yeah, some call it hibiscus, some call it, I think, hibiscus tea.
Yes.
Yeah, then I read the other story of the boy in the rocket miles.
Miles away in the Caribbean.
Yes, going to different Caribbean. Are they countries or islands?
So the thing is in the Caribbean is that it's, the only thing that's different from us is where the ship landed. But the Caribbean region is made up, there are different islands, right? Mm-hmm. And then there are, and this is where it's a small subset of people, and sadly they're poorly educated, or the parents weren't well educated and teach them that, what binds us as Caribbean people and Caribbean nations is culture. A lot of times. So you have Caribbean islands, you have your Barbados, Grenada, your St. Kitts, your Antiguas, and all these, right? You have Cuba and whatnot. And then you have actual countries like landmass in bordering the Caribbean Sea. So you have Dutch Caribbean, which is Suriname. You have Guyana, that's where I'm from. That's England owned us, the same people, British, that owned all the English-speaking islands. And then you have even French Guyana. So when we say Caribbean, in a sense, you have some little islands that don't refer to themselves as that, right? Whatever it is. And there's history to that, they just really don't. Especially a lot of the Latin islands. Okay. So when we say Caribbean people, Caribbean culture, a lot of times it's allotted to a certain group that's a part of what we call CARICOM. So that book, Miles in the Caribbean, highlighted the full CARICOM members. And that started with Jamaica, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, that economically bind together as like the strong countries of Caribbean people, politics and such. And they were under British rule, right? And said, we have to build CARICOM that would, we all just, feed into each other, right? It's a bond that you make because you're similar in many ways. And then that book highlights the full members. And then they're like little secondary members. They're like, yeah, we'll give it input, but we're not going to consider ourselves full Caribbean people. So yes, it is referring to the islands there, but also when I say I'm from a Caribbean country, because that's my heritage, that's my culture. I cannot be a Caribbean person and the country I'm from is a Caribbean nation. And then it's like the headquarters is literally in my country. Anyways, there's a history to it. And what I really wanted that book to do when I first wrote it, there weren't any books like that took a child from the diaspora into the Caribbean and taught them about it. And it sounds like an adventure, but it's real. The food you're hearing, it's real. The places are real. And Miles is real. Miles is actually, before the age of 5, he's traveled to like 14 countries. So I've traveled a lot with him. My mom did the same with me when she worked as a kid. I would go to different islands. So that's why I have a concept too of, different people within the Caribbean. I know my people. But yeah, that's pretty much when we say Caribbean people, how it covers. But yeah, we can't exclude the nations that are real, especially when you come to full Caribbean members like Guyana, one of the founders of CARICOM, right? The Caribbean community. All of our passports have Caribbean community on it. And that's how you see someone from Jamaica, someone from Guyana, or Trinidad, it has Caribbean community on that passport, little things like that. Even I want to go back to your Nancy Spider story. One of the things about us too is like we all had a Nancy Spider stories. So it's kind of like, of course, enslaved people they were displaced. Yeah. The tribes were forced to intermingle. Yes. And they kept certain stories alive that we all share. So, and that's the thing with the Caribbean as well. It has a history where enslaved people were sold from Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad, and they used to call it like the breeding grounds. And they would sell those slaves into the Caribbean regions. And also slaves, even from Guyana, when it was sold, enslaved people were sold into the South, into the US. That's why you find a lot of times we have similarities in ways. It's such a complex history, but one of the things is that it's there. And once we can relate to each other, it's like we have crossed paths, we have shared history. And that's what binds us as Caribbean people. But that book specifically, I did it purposely because I wanted people, when they go, why did you pick those countries? Well, those are full Caribbean members. They have labeled themselves, I am of Caribbean culture, I am a part of the Caribbean community, and these are my brothers and sisters within that Caribbean region. So yeah.
Oh, look, you've educated me this morning because I have never been to the Caribbean, but it's on my bucket list. I need to visit these countries because we have so much in common, down to even the games I see them play. I go, yes. This is Ayo. We play this in Nigeria.
Yes.
We do that. Yeah.
Yes.
So how important do you think it is for us to tell diverse stories? How important do you think it is for children to open up books and see people who look like them? How important do you think that is?
I think it's very important because, number one, our kids deserve to feel seen. We come from a group of people where we don't feel seen, right? We are sold an image of ourselves, and we are kind of told we accept it. We're sold an image of someone else, and we're told we have to accept it. Here's my thing. What if the roles were reversed and there were more blacks than more whites? And then I have a group of white kids and I give them a book and it's just Irish. And they're looking at like, what? I'm Scottish, but I'm British. No, it's a white kid. You look white. There you go. It's Irish, Yeah. How fair would that be? That's what's been happening to us. We've been fed a lot of times American literature, American book. And my child is from Canada, of Caribbean and African heritage, East African heritage. Yeah. How is it even okay for my child to open a book and just because there's a black character in it, that's all he gets, right? And even to get that alone, it is important to see, yes, but there's way more. There are layers to it. I find that it's so important that I literally go deeper than that. Yeah, you see this black kid? Let me show you everything about that kid and so much more. And all this kid is going to learn. And here's my kid's friends. Like, there's way more to it, and it's real. If you come to Scarborough, my Soca birthday party, you'll see those kids. Yes. Those are real kids, yes. Right? That is real. So it is so important for them to not only learn about their culture and heritage, and because, as I said, people will sell you something else. You can be falsely educated on who you are, and then they will generalize you. And that's not fair to our kids. Our ancestors had to go through that all their life. At some point, you stand up and you go, okay, what's missing? And one thing about myself, a lot of people don't know, I am actually, I work in publishing and have. And imagine, I work in publishing, I'm Black, there are not a lot of Black people in publishing, academic publishing, and I had to self-publish my book because you're right. When you bring a book that is so heavily influenced by culture and you saying who it is, you want to represent, right? And in order for you to tell the story, you have to tell the history of it, how it got from A to B. Yes. And people feel like it's too much. That's what they feel like, it's too much. So you know what? You don't look to them for approval. You don't look to them to accept you. You go out and you make it happen. And that's what I did, because it is important for our kids to learn their history. And it didn't start from slavery. It's important for them to know, you know, their parents, their grandparents, learn more about it. There's so many Caribbean people, people of direct, you know, African nations and such that are born here, and they don't really understand to the fullest. It's all hearsay kind of thing. A lot of times, you know, they don't know what books to read or, you know, to really get the truth of it. So my thing is that for the younger generation, I want you to see yourself. You should feel seen. You should feel celebrated. I am tired of these sad Black kid books. Like, I am not writing that, you know, no woeful pity me. I like to laugh, I like to listen to soca, I like to dance, and I like to eat, right? And I want my kid to read a book and feel, yes, empowered, pick up, and you know, this is you, you know, little guy, this is you, little girl, and all to your friends, this is us, right? And I feel they deserve that type of literature. I also feel they deserve to embrace their heritage and their culture and don't feel ashamed of it. And this goes for many others. When I go in a classroom, I ask, what will you bring to the party? And you'd have an Asian kid go, yeah, they'll name their traditional food, because sometimes they'll feel like, maybe I shouldn't say it. It's like, no, it's okay. And they'll say it. And they go, do you know what that is? Yes, I eat it too. And you see their face light up, right? And then they're like, and it's like, it's okay to do this. So this is what I want my books to do. And I feel our kids deserve that after hundreds of years of being rejected from it. And I pack as much as I can in it, right? Because that's my reality. I step into a room, there's so many of us. Diversity is not one or two and tokens. Diversity means when you walk into a room, there is so much to explore, right?
And that's the beauty. You know, I tell people that we need to the only way forward is we need to get to a point where we are comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's the truth. Because I put this book, the manuscript is still sitting there, and I'm still wondering, you know what? Do I go ahead and self-publish like I've self-published the first two in the series? Because the title of my series is Africa is Not a Country. Because people just assume, oh, so I went to Africa, and I go, what country, which country did you visit? Because Africa is a continent. It's not a country. There's nothing like I went to Africa. Tell me, I went to Nigeria, I went to Ghana, tell me that. So what are some of so now you've self-published some of your books and you are traditionally published. What was your traditional publishing journey like?
When I started self-publishing, I was putting out books every year, and that's without a grant or anything, on my own. I was, you know, freshly divorced with this baby, and we were just doing it. And people would see like my ads and my marketing, my videos pushing this book, but you know, I wouldn't show myself more. And I just continued. I remember sharing Miles Away in the Caribbean. It was written like 2018, and then I said, okay, let me see if someone's going to publish it. And I got that same information, like, oh, it's too much, just do Barbados alone, just do this alone. And I'm like, why? Because when I walk into a fete and I go to carnival, it's all of us, it's all of we, it's me and my family. That's the reality, right? Like, how were you telling me to split it up? It's not my thing. Leave that for someone else. But this is a reality. right? And they didn't understand. And then once again, I'm just in my head and I know how publishing works. I work in publishing. And you have people that are so naive. They'll say, oh, it's easy to get. It's not.
It's not.
It's not. And I work in publishing. It is not. And clearly it is not, especially for a lot of Black authors. Of course, with the 9/11, everyone was like, okay, you're getting deals, whatever, because they just had to like, you know, like we got to fix this, fill in the gray areas and whatnot. But still, there's so many Black writers out there with great manuscripts that should be explored, right? So what I wanted to say is that, you know, putting out those books, there's so many great Black authors with great manuscript that needs to be seen, and it's not. I know this for sure. I read stuff and I'm like, this is crap. But I know writers out there that are so brilliant and they should be there. Now, for myself, I was working in academic publishers. They don't do trade books, right? And I remember my boss going, Yolanda, don't, like, at this point I'd written Soca Birthday Party, right? And it's like, don't self-publish this book. I love this book. Don't self-publish this. Let me see who I can talk to, right? Okay. And he did try to, and once again, it was like, no, you know, not a lot of people buy it. And he was just like, who cares? It's something that's needed, right? And it was one publisher that got it, and he goes, let me send it whatever to this publisher. And I know the publisher, not no, but it's like I'm aware of who they are. They didn't do children's book. Chalkboard Publishing, I am their first storybook. They're just academic for kids, K to 5. Activity books.
So I actually thought that it was your private publishing company.
For Chalkboard?
Yes, that's what I thought.
No,
I didn't know them because, you know, I had been sending out manuscripts everywhere. When I saw that, I'm like, so Yolanda owns this.
No, I don't. I cannot. No, I work in publishing. I've worked for Nelson Education, and now I actually still do work in publishing. But no, I actually Chalkboard Publishing. It was just like educational books. There are many publishers, and that's another thing. Like there are like over 100 publisher at small press, and a lot of times you won't hear about a small press, you know, as much as the big guys. But if you go to their website, you'll see all the materials, and the CEO is a mom, and she read that story, and it's something that she can learn from because she was an educator. And within, like, you know, a short time, I was like, okay, yeah, fine, whatever. If anybody says no, I'm going about what I know. I'm not looking for anyone to approve it. I'm going to self-publish this. And I'm driving home, and all of a sudden he's like, hey, he goes, pull over. And I was like, okay. So I pulled over, and he's just like, yes, she's putting this out. And 2020 is going to come out. And I was like,
fantastic.
What? And then go, yeah, and send more send the rest of your manuscripts. So she's gonna do those too. So it was like a multi-book deal.
Oh, fantastic.
And then the pandemic happened, and it's like now it's like, okay, here I have, like, my books are here, and it's like, it was just awesome. And I you know, you're in this shock, you're going about it, and pandemic happened. The good thing about me having a lot of publishing experience is that, you know, I know what I have to do, and self-publishing teaches you so much if you're willing to learn properly. And then, of course, working in publishing, I understood. So I'm not a hard person for her to market or anything. I do that myself, right? That's what I've done for the organization I've worked in for like over a decade, like, you know, so yeah, during the pandemic, you saw Soca Birthday Party came out, and it was, you know, one of the best picture books for us.
Yes, because I came across it. How did I come across it? I think first of all, I came across, was it C for Carnival? Because when I was looking for a publisher for my book, I decided, okay, you know what? Create the Melanin Jolly project. This will be focused on your children's project. So it's not mixed up, because I run the Ottawa Black Book Club. So it is separate. And then there is Louisa, which is Lady Louisanne. It is separate. So I started looking for other authors to say, okay, what are those people doing that I'm not doing? And that was where I came across C for Carnival. That was the first book I came across. And I went, C for Carnival. Okay, who is this lady? And then I started to search. And then I found you. And then I followed you.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So that's what I do. And I went, she has an agent. How did you get your agent?
Yes.
Yeah.
So first I got that multi-book deal before the pandemic. Now I'm in the pandemic, and Jahil, who's so close to my heart. I remember like back in the days I was just self-published. I turned up to a Fold event. I got to read my story. My readers, I was selling a lot of books. And once again, just marketing, videos, Facebook, all this. Oh my gosh, if you ever see my marketing videos and all this. And I could do it without showing much of who I am. I was walking into stores 2 years after I published a book, right? But anyways, and Fold was there, and I go, hey, what was this Fold diversity stuff? And I go, are you doing events, blah, blah, blah? And they replied, they looked at my books like, hey, come and do a reading. And it was so great. I had readers turning up, and they wanted me to sign books, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I remember she looked at me, she goes, you deserve to be in Indigo. And I'm like, I know, but we know how this publishing thing is. Yeah, but she's absolutely great to me, an awesome person, someone I can talk to when I'm facing any weirdness in the publishing industry. I could go and go, can you believe this stuff that I had to experience? So, but anyways, her agent, right? Carly, who's amazing. She's one of the top agents in Canada, then contacted me. This was just months after I got the book deal, months into the pandemic, she contacts me.
Okay.
She's like, I want to be your agent. I'm like, I'm not going to say no, because a lot of times you have to, and people don't understand that with publishing, there are times you have to go searching, applying for an agent. It's trying to get the book
since 2004.
Yeah. Most people don't get that. And it's I find personally, I feel that, I don't know if my ancestors or whatever. And every time, even while I was self-publishing, I was still promoting. I had a podcast, you can look it up, it's Caribbean Storytime, and I would be promoting other authors. And I've just been like that because I'm passionate. I want to see these books.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing too.
And you do the same. And this is good. Listen, it comes. It does come, and it just gravitate. And I was just like, yeah, so I kept going, and Chalkboard, I already had my set up with them, which is nice. They're a small press, and they did these books. That is huge. Wow. During a pandemic, these little guys did it. They're not little. I find they're big. They're huge, right? And it's to me, it's if you're dealing with me, you're getting some authentic stuff, right? And there was nothing scaring them about what's in here. Nothing,
Yeah, because with literary agents, I realized that I was talking to a literary agent. I had interviewed a literary agent also for this podcast, and I was asking her about books that had been self-published. She said, well, sometimes they can be traditionally republished, tweaked. But for me, I always go, I just want an opportunity to get me to a literary agent to say, you know what, take a look at this work, tell me what you think. But I think many of them also are swamped with submissions. So they don't have time. The closest I got was, I had one literary agent read my work, and she said, I really, really love your work, but I'm not in love with it. Another one said, I love your work, but I don't know how to market it. Then somebody I interviewed on this podcast just said, you know what, reach out to my literary agent. And
yes.
I said, okay. So I sent him a message and I said, referral from XYZ. And he just read my work and said, no, I don't think I can market this. I felt you should at least give me a little explanation. What is the challenge? Why can't you market? How can I make this manuscript better?
Yes. Yeah, and sometimes you need that feedback. With my agent, I find my agent, I bet she has a lot of people. I don't know if she's taking on more, but you should contact her or follow her. But she actually recently, her link, maybe you're there, but she just posted, I think it was yesterday, what she looks for, right?
Really? Okay.
Which is nice. And I don't see a lot of literary agents even posting that. That is vital information. I think she is, one of the smartest, one of the wisest people in publishing. She knows her stuff. And this is someone working in publishing. It's I don't have to explain myself, you know. It's like I feel safe there.
I would love to interview her. Just ask,
no,
what are you guys looking for?
So she actually did. She posted exactly what she's looking for on about 4 or 5 slides. I would say read that.
Okay.
And look at it, and you'll have a good idea. And when I read it, I'm like, I'm reading all this, like, it just, and you said, you know what? When she met me, I had established myself in many ways. I marketed. You could see I'm marketing. I know these things, and I know how to you know, share my books. I always have been, since my first book, Command's First Carnival.
Oh, okay.
I was 2015, 2016. I've been like marketing and doing my thing, right? Before, like, you find a lot of writers like came out through COVID, you know, and they have books and whatnot, and it's like, it's so good to see that. You know, before that, you just felt like you were alone in this world with this real authentic cultural stuff. Yeah,
because
you're pushing through alone.
Yeah, because I look at it and I go, I don't know how am I going to market this? Where am I going to take this? Okay, so now that you've been traditionally published, right? Because I'm reading your story, I'm looking at injera, chapati, chapo, dal puri. Do you think that traditional publishing, finding an agent, affects the authenticity of telling stories? Because we must not forget that publishing is a business, and people want to publish what they can sell. Like for me, a literary agent said to me, your story is too heavy. So that means she can't market it. So do you think it affects the authenticity of storytelling?
That's up to you and your agent. Number one, I find I am very confident in what I represent. Okay. And I think if anyone, I bet a lot of publishers will not mess with me, because if they go on my Instagram, if they go on my Facebook, they will see what I'm about. I am not here to be watered down in a sense. So if they are looking for authentic culture children's books, with a lot of knowledge, and, you know, I live it, it's there, and they could look at my history. They look it up. What year did you put a book out? What did you put out? All of this stuff is, you know, and compared to like what did other people put out or whatever, and they see who I am. I'm confident in that, and I have never watered it down. Actually, it has gotten much stronger, you know, and much louder, and I'm confident in that. I know that I got into traditional publishing because that's why a publisher saw my stuff and felt, I learned something and you're worth it. Yes, we're going to invest in you. Okay. An agent saw me and is like, yes, this is authentic. This is what I want. And believe in me. And this built my confidence. Like, this is me. So I know that when I'm writing, I'm putting my heart, I'm putting my passion, I'm putting my soul, and I stand towards it, and a publisher picks me up. They're seeing this in me. I'm not going to. And chances are they're like what they see, and that's what they're looking for. But if they're looking for me to like go soft and not tell my story or not infuse my cultural music, my cultural taste, my cultural experiences, then there are many other people out there to water down their stuff. It's just not me. And I find that if you stand true to yourself, and a publisher is true to like, yes, this is what I want, because it will come.
Okay. Yeah, because at the end of this, I saw you had the recipe for jollof rice here.
Yes.
So the irony is my manuscript has this too. It has the recipe. It has recipes. So I was wondering, I said, okay, so is it being turned down because I'm talking about jollof rice?
No, not at all.
Turned down because I'm talking about sorrel. Then I came across your books and I went, you know what? I'm going to buy her book. I'm going to read it and see how she told her story. And I read it and I went, but she's talking about it coming from Africa. So what is the problem? I read this one and I went, okay, she's talking about food, different food. Oh,
all the time. Even this, beef patties, all this. Yeah. Like, I've always written about food, and it because it says a lot about my history. And I don't think it's so much about that. I really do think I lucked out a lot, especially with Chalkboard. And you know, they know that I worked in publishing, and they know me and what I'm capable of doing, and they know that I market myself very well. So, and I love the fact that they respect my culture and they love it. They love the stories. And I wouldn't say to water it down. I wouldn't say to stop that. Because it's a part of the story. There's so many foods. Like there's so many books out there, frying plantain, all this, there's foods mentioned in it. Might not have a recipe, but there are foods in these books.
Children need to learn these things, because if we don't tell these stories, like for us, those of us in Nigeria was colonized by the British.
Yes.
The British literature was a staple in our education. Everything we read, everything. I read all the Nancy Drews, the Enid Blytons. Everything was British. It's later we started to see Nigerian or African themed stories being told.
Yes.
So what are some of the challenges? What do you think are some of the challenges diverse authors face? Like I told you, I've been trying to get a literary agent for my adult books in 2004. And then when I started writing children's books 2 years ago, I decided, okay, let me try and get a literary agent for these books, these series. And then I just kept getting rejections. So what do you think the challenges are?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of times it was, and it still is. People, once again, feel it's too heavy because they're not willing to learn, to digest it, to give it a taste, to say, and that's their personal issue. We still face problems. People think like, oh, you're self-published, now you're traditionally published, it's easy. No, you still have to market yourself, and a little harder because you're on people's time and you're on their dime. And it's self-publishers like, oh, and it's like, that's not how it works. Like you gotta keep working. When you see these books out, you see these authors that are traditionally published, and you see them posting and stuff, they've got to sell their books regardless, right? And they're doing that without being like paid right away, right? Like they get their little lump sum there, and they gotta sell a whole much before they start getting money. So we're like, it's a lot of work. Now, I find we're still facing problems once again, telling like your manuscript is sitting there and you find it's still kind of hard to get in. And then there's also, you get reviewed, and your book's getting reviewed by people who just don't understand the culture, don't understand our vibe and our flow. That's another big thing that you're faced with. And then you're also faced with coming into contact with people who don't understand publishing, who might not be professional. It's like, it's so much. I find you have to tune out of that. Pay attention to your work. Be confident in your work, and make connections with people that are there to uplift you, to guide you, right? Don't make enemies with the wrong people. At times, there's so much to learn from in the industry, and you don't know who's who. For all you know, you'd go in a space and the right person you talk to is the one to say, hey, give me that manuscript. So we're still going to face our problems, right? We're still going to get our books published because of tokenism. We're still going to do all these things. But at the end of it is being true to your writing, and the right publisher is going to come to you. For me, so far, I think it's in that sense, it's like, look, this is me, and this is what you're going to get. And I love that. In regards, like I would give you like advice, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Sign up for it. Are you a member of the Writers Union?
The Writers Union, no.
Of Canada. You sign up, you can, because you have self-published books, you have work, you have a body of publications, and you don't have to be traditionally published, only sign up for the Writers Union. The Writers Union has a lot of information on how to get published. They also have like meetings and such, and they have mentorship, and you can be mentored a lot of times by even editors, publishers, other like major authors, right? Like, so that is one thing, because it's a great place to network and be professional, especially when you know that you have something that's great. Another place to sign up for as a performer. You perform, you're an artist, right? Do readings. Canscape, Canscape. I think that was the Children's Association. Yeah, so that performers and children's book authors, and it's a lot of traditional published authors, of course, is there. But if self-published, but if you're a performer, right? And you share your work, you tell your story, storytellers and such, you can sign up as well. And they have, once again, huge networking, right spaces. And then you can sit down and you talk, you know who's who. And here's another tip. If you go to UTP, that's University of Toronto Press, they're the biggest distributor in Canada. And you go to the UTP distribution website, look up publishers. Okay?
Oh, okay.
You will see majority, because they distribute, once again, biggest distributor. You will see all these publishers that are distributing in Canada, and over 100 of them that you can apply to. You go to their website, look at their submission, keep your eyes on it, and treat it like a job. You just got to keep going, like, you know. But it will open your eyes as to like what's out there, and you will see so many publishers that more than likely you've missed submitting your work to.
Yeah, because when I started working on the series, I'll show you. So because I have them, I went up as far as making them bilingual, you know. So I have this one, Crowning Glory, where I'm talking about African hair.
Yeah, I plan to feature that in Caribbean Camera newspaper. I got that. Oh, I got it. I got this coming. I write an article, a column, quickly for a Caribbean Camera newspaper. Mm-hmm. It's printed and online. Okay. And I have this one, this same book of yours.
Oh, really?
So yes, I do. I will. It's going to be in a newspaper. I'll send you when it's posted, and I'll save a physical copy for you, and I'll mail it. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, I'm going to feature that. That's beautiful.
Okay, yeah. So I have this one, and then I have the African Safari, where I talk about, you see, African, but you know what? I also went as far. I went, you know what? This. I made these.
What?
Yes, I did this. So, what are the tips you would give authors who want to write authentic stories, who want to find a literary agent, and who want to get traditionally published? What tips would you give to them? What advice?
Number one, always, network with the right people. And how to do that is be aware of your organizations, your literary organizations that's out there, and learn about publishing. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of self-published authors that came out during COVID, and they don't understand publishing. You would see that they get upset if they see an article and you have all these traditional published books, and like, where's my book? Well, there's like a terrier to this. There's different groups, and even within there, not everyone's included. Like, there's so many, but understand publishing and how it works. Who are your publishers, right? Read their website, get acquainted with it. How do you get your books into store? Learn about that. But understand publishing for what it is. And where do you fit in, right? And the networking thing, as I said, join certain groups and you can get aware. Like, a lot of people talk to me and they don't realize, like, I actually work in publishing too.
I'm surprised. I didn't know.
Yeah,
I thought you own Chalkboard.
No way. No, I do not own my publisher. I wish, no, they pay me. So it's just, once again, get aware of like what publishing companies are out there. What are they looking for? And also what subjects they're looking to publish. Because once again, you have the writings on foods and such, and then you're going to find there's a season when people just don't want to publish that. They're looking for something else. So always have a lot of manuscripts available.
I do. Towards the end of last year, people were focused on the environment.
Yes.
So I started a series and I focused it on Africa.
Yes.
But I mean,
you keep going, you will find it. And as I said, just learn about a lot of them. And also you show up for yourself. Like I'd always say, like, and read what is out there. A lot of times you find people are like writing the same thing that's out there, which it could be where the publisher already have an author with that subject matter, right? Or they're aware that there are too many of that out there. So no, I don't want this, So really have an understanding of what's being published, what's going to be published. You can go on like Book Manager and see like what's coming out and all these kind of things, but be aware of the industry, and then you can channel and say, okay, this is what's unique that I can put in there, or this is what's missing, and that's the way to go. But networking is so vital. And also, learning about the publishers. Even if you have an agent as well does this work for you. Yes. They have to work and go, okay, what is this publisher looking for? What is it? You're the agent, you're the author, you're the editor, you're everything. Mm-hmm. So put that hat on, and then you just keep going at it, right? And also, like, for me, if I see a publisher's looking for certain material and I know you've got it, I am very quick. Like there are a lot of people like behind the scenes, like submit here, submit.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like just talking about it, and I'm just like,
let me
this
know.
guy's looking this, and I know, because if I know now, it's like, yeah, I know you have something. I'm gonna be like, submit, you know, and you never know who calls your name in the room. Yeah, I would say just keep going at it, and don't let that rejection phase you. It should never, put you in a slump. I always say this: it doesn't matter if a publisher doesn't want my work or whatnot. I'm still gonna make it happen.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, so much, Yolanda. Thank you for this amazing book. So, if people want to buy your books, where can they find your books to buy?
So they're on, of course, all your e-retailers website, your Amazon, your Indigos and such. I really say to please support your small bookstores. Even if they don't have my book on the shelf, they can buy it. They can get it in. They can order it in. Of course, we know books don't stock everything. Bookstores, they don't stock everything. But, a different book list and such, Knowledge Bookstore, you have Notability. Like we do have a lot of Black-owned bookstores here in Toronto, fortunately. So you can get it there. But yeah, it's in many places, and also in libraries as well. But you can order it from a bookstore. If you don't see it on the shelf, you can get it in, especially in my traditionally published books. You can order in. But yeah, it's everywhere.